today, we're exploring the shadows that lurk behind each type's facade, the parts they'd rather keep hidden. So buckle up, because you're about to get personally attacked. I mean, educated. Have you ever wondered what your personality type is hiding? That little voice in your head saying, "Don't tell them that about yourself." Well, too bad, because today I'm exposing everything. The dark sides, the secret thoughts, the behaviours they'll deny until their dying breath. And before you rage quit this video, remember, self-awareness is the first step to growth. Or at least that's what I tell myself to justify this psychological roast session. Let's dive into the shadow, shall we? INTJ, the mastermind. INTJs pride themselves on being strategic geniuses, but here's what they won't tell you. They're secretly judging every single decision you make, cataloguing your mistakes, and mentally redesigning your entire life. That INTJ friend who nodded when you explained your brilliant plan? They've already identified 17 flaws and mentally buried your idea 6 feet under. An INTJ once watched me struggle for 20 minutes to assemble a shelf before saying, "I figured out what you were doing wrong 19 minutes ago, but I thought the experience might teach you something." Thanks for the life lesson, you walking Wikipedia with trust issues. Their darkest secret? They're terrified of being proven wrong. Nothing shatters an INTJ's world quite like discovering their master plan had a fundamental flaw that any sensor type could have spotted immediately. The horror. INTP, the Logician. INTPs are supposedly these brilliant analysers of everything, but here's their dirty little secret. They rarely finish anything they start. Their hard drives are digital graveyards of half-baked novels, abandoned coding projects, and folders labelled revolutionary ideas to develop later. Spoiler alert, later never comes. My INTP friend once spent 3 hours explaining why a particular restaurant's menu was philosophically inconsistent, but couldn't decide what to order. The waiter aged visibly during the conversation. What INTPs will never admit. They use logic and analysis as emotional armour. Why process feelings when you can disappear into a 4-hour YouTube rabbit hole about quantum physics? That existential dread isn't going to distract itself. ENTJ, the commander. ENTJs present themselves as efficient leaders who get things done, but their shadow side is their secret belief that everyone else is fundamentally incompetent. They're not delegating tasks. They're assigning homework to people they view as slightly evolved chimpanzees. I once watched an ENTJ reorganize an entire office birthday party because the fun efficiency metrics were suboptimal. They created a spreadsheet for optimal gift opening sequence. The birthday person cried, not from joy. What ENTJs won't admit. They're haunted by imposter syndrome like everyone else, but instead of working through it, they just work harder and yell louder. Nothing says I'm secure in my abilities like sending emails at 3 a.m. to establish dominance. ENTP, the debater. ENTPs love positioning themselves as intellectual mavericks who challenge convention, but here's what they hide. They'll argue against their own deeply held beliefs just to keep a conversation going. Your ENTP friend doesn't actually think pineapple belongs on pizza. They just couldn't bear watching everyone agree with each other for 5 consecutive minutes. An ENTP once convinced me the Earth might be flat for a solid hour before revealing they were just exploring alternative epistemological frameworks. I've never forgiven them. Their darkest secret? They're terrified of emotional intimacy. Why have a heartfelt conversation when you can start a debate about whether cereal is technically soup? Checkmate. Feelings. INFJ, the advocate. INFJs present as compassionate empaths who understand everyone, but their shadow side is dangerous idealism. They create perfect mental images of people, then feel personally betrayed when humans act human. That INFJ who suddenly disappeared from your life. You probably ate a sandwich in a way that violated their unspoken moral code. My INFJ friend once ended a 3-year friendship because they sensed negative energy shifts when their friend bought non-organic bananas. The betrayal was apparently unforgivable. What INFJs will never confess, they're judgmental as hell. Behind those understanding eyes is a complex moral spreadsheet where they're constantly calculating your worthiness. But they'll never tell you. They'll just door slam you into oblivion. INFP, the mediator. INFPs portray themselves as authentic free spirits, but their dark side is living primarily in elaborate fantasy worlds where they're always the misunderstood hero. Reality rarely matches up, leading to an endless cycle of disappointment. That INFP friend who's always sighing dramatically, they're mentally comparing you to the idealized version of you that exists only in their head. An INFP once told me they were too complex for conventional employment while asking for their 6th rent extension. Their unfinished novel about a misunderstood poet warrior had reached page 3. Their secret shame? They're master emotional manipulators. Those puppy dog eyes and vulnerable confessions are carefully calibrated weapons deployed to make you feel like the villain in their personal movie. ENFJ, the protagonist. ENFJs appear as selfless champions of others, but their shadow side is an insatiable need for approval and validation. They're not helping you move apartments because they're saints. They're mentally banking your gratitude like emotional Bitcoin. I watched an ENFJ friend organise a surprise party while simultaneously texting updates to the guest of honour because they couldn't bear not being personally thanked for each decoration. Just checking if you're still coming sent 17 times. What ENFJs can't admit? They weaponize empathy. They'll use their emotional intelligence to figure out exactly what you need to hear, not to help you, but to position themselves as the irreplaceable hero in your story. ENFP, the campaigner. ENFPs show themselves as spontaneous possibility seekers, but their dark side is chronic inconsistency masked as following inspiration. That ENFP who was passionately starting a business last week, they've already abandoned it for competitive birdwatching, which will last approximately 3.7 days. My ENFP friend has had 7 soul-finding career changes in 2 years. They described their most recent pivot to artisanal sock puppet creation as finally answering my authentic calling, the exact words used for their previous venture into urban beekeeping, their hidden truth. They're secretly terrified of commitment because it means closing doors. Why finish one book when you could start reading 12? Their dating history looks like the cast list for a small country's census. ISTJ, the Logistician. ISTJs present as reliable pillars of consistency, but their shadow is a rigid addiction to rules that don't actually exist. They've created intricate mental rulebooks for everything from loading dishwashers to human interaction, and they're silently apoplectic when you violate Section 7, Paragraph 4 of proper sock drawer organisation. An ISTJ once refused to attend a dinner because the invitation said 6-ish and not a precise time. When asked what time would work, they replied, "A specific one." What ISTJs hide? They're judging you against their grandfather, who apparently did everything perfectly, including taxes, home repair and maintaining stoic emotional distance from his family. ISFJ, the defender. ISFJs appear as selfless caregivers, but their shadow side is martyrdom as an Olympic sport. Every sigh, every "no, it's fine" is carefully tallied in their mental ledger of unappreciated sacrifices. That ISFJ who insisted on making you soup when you had a cold, they're still bringing it up 3 years later. My ISFJ relative keeps a mental spreadsheet of who didn't compliment her potluck contributions dating back to 1997. She'll tell you she doesn't remember while simultaneously recalling the exact dish and weather conditions. Their darkest secret. Their caretaking often comes with invisible strings attached. They're not helping because they're saints. They're creating dependency to feel needed while resenting you for needing them. ESTJ, the executive. ESTJs portray themselves as efficient organisers, but their shadow is an unshakable belief that their way isn't just a way, but the only way. The ESTJ spouse who reorganised your entire kitchen isn't being helpful. They're correcting your obvious inferiority in cabinet organisation strategies. An ESTJ once created a 27-point agenda for a casual happy hour, including bathroom break schedules and mandated fun activities. 3 people cried. What ESTJs will never admit. They're secretly bewildered by people who don't want their lives micromanaged into perfect efficiency. In their minds, they're not controlling. Everyone else is just wrong and disorganised. ESFJ, the Consul. ESFJs present as social harmonisers, But their dark side is using community standards as emotional weapons. They're not inviting you to the neighborhood potluck because they like you. They're maintaining social order and collecting intelligence on who brought store-bought desserts. My ESFJ neighbor keeps coincidentally checking her mail whenever new people move in, armed with welcome brownies and a comprehensive verbal download of every community rule and social expectation. The brownies are a Trojan horse for conformity. They're hidden truth. They're deeply insecure about their own social standing and use gossip strategically to solidify their position in the hierarchy. That concern about Sarah's divorce isn't compassion, it's reconnaissance. ISTP, the virtuoso. ISTPs show themselves as laid-back pragmatists, but their shadow is emotional constipation so severe it should be a medical condition. Ask an ISTP how they're feeling, and watch them malfunction like you've asked a calculator to write poetry. An ISTP friend responded to my tearful breakup confession with, "That's inefficient. Have you considered optimizing your partner selection algorithm?" Then offered to fix my dishwasher as a form of emotional support. What ISTPs won't admit? They're not actually chill. They're emotionally overwhelmed and hiding behind a wall of practical competence. Why process grief when you can rebuild a motorcycle engine? ISFP, the adventurer. ISFPs portray themselves as authentic artists, but their dark side is weaponized sensitivity. Criticize their creative expression even constructively, and prepare for a silent treatment so thorough you'll question your own existence. My ISFP friend changed their entire aesthetic, friend group and personality after I said their handmade bracelet was interesting. I'm pretty sure they moved to Oregon and now go by a different name. Their secret struggle? They judge themselves more harshly than anyone else ever could, but instead of addressing this, they just restyle their hair and apartment every 3 weeks in an endless cycle of external reinvention. ESTP, the entrepreneur. ESTPs present as confident risk-takers, but their shadow is a pathological need for intensity that would make adrenaline junkies look like meditation enthusiasts. They're not living in the moment. They're running from existential boredom that nips at their heels like hungry wolves. An ESTP once turned a casual lunch into an impromptu road trip to another state because the restaurant atmosphere was too predictable. We had meetings that afternoon. No one else had their passport. What ESTPs hide? They're secretly terrified of being ordinary. Their daredevil antics aren't courage. They're an elaborate distraction from the conventional responsibilities they're avoiding, like tax audits. ESFP, the entertainer. ESFPs show themselves as joyful experience seekers, but their dark side is attention dependency that would make social media influencers seem self-sufficient. That ESFP friend who spontaneously started singing at your grandmother's funeral. They calculated the acoustic properties of the church beforehand. My ESFP acquaintance once faked a minor injury at a wedding because the toasts were going too long without audience participation. The bride was mid-vows. Their uncomfortable truth. Beneath the life of the party exterior is someone who measures their worth entirely through external validation and applause. The show never stops because they don't know who they are when the curtain closes. So there you have it, the shadows lurking behind each MBTI type's carefully constructed persona. Before you unleash your fury in the comments, remember, acknowledging our dark sides doesn't make them stronger. It diminishes their power over us. Which type's dark side did you recognize in yourself? Or more likely, which ones did you immediately assign to the annoying people in your life? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more personality insights that will make you question your relationships. This is MBTI Spectrum, where we don't just analyze personalities, we expose them. Until the next time, embrace your shadows, or at least admit they exist.